You're listening to the Toolstation Western League podcast with Ian Knockolds and Tom Hiscott.
Welcome to episode 35 of the Toolstation Western League podcast with me, Ian Knockolds, and I am delighted to be joined by Tom Hiscott, the author of the Western League Bulletin. Hello, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, doing well, thanks. How about yourself?
I'm not bad. I enjoyed a beautiful weekend in the waterfront city of Portsmouth with my family. We had a very pleasant time, but unfortunately no football was watched. So I was entirely reliant upon social media and, of course, our outstanding Western League app to keep me up to date with the fixtures. And interesting to see a couple of postponements thrown in there as well, Tom. So it looks like the weather gods and indeed a macerator failure at Bristol Telephones meant that game against Devizes couldn't go ahead. So it just goes to show all sorts of weird, wonderful things, including the weather and, of course, macerators can affect our fixtures. So that will be interesting to see just how much that condenses us going into the to the end of the campaign. And of course, a postponement has also made things slightly more interesting, if they needed to be made more interesting, in the First Division race, because Keynsham will be playing on Tuesday evening this week, because their game against Wincanton couldn't go ahead. So not quite able to capitalise on a very important win for them last week, which we will be talking about in this podcast. Actually, the First Division title race is a very important theme in this week's podcast, because we speak to Shaun Potter, the manager of Cheddar, and we also catch up with an old friend of the podcast, one of my favourite managers in Western League football. It is Clive Jones, the manager of Wellington, who is the very embodiment and reincarnation of Brian Clough, in my opinion. But anyway, you'll be hearing all about that later. We will go straight into this week's podcast, not by looking at the results on the, Saturday, the 6th of April, but we'll start by talking about that really important game that happened on Tuesday, the 2nd of April, between Cheddar and Keynsham Town.
Yeah, the big one at Bowdens Park last week, as you mentioned. 263 there to see it. Not a surprise that there was such a big attendance for such an eagerly anticipated game, and it went the visitors' way. Keynsham making big strides in the title race, claiming a 2-0 win away at Cheddar. Cheddar reduced to 10 men for a straight red card to Stephen Pennington towards the end of the first half, and Keynsham took full advantage in the second half. Stephen Lee with a header, putting them ahead 10 minutes after the break, and then late on, Cheddar came really close. Callum Laird hitting the bar with a header of his own, and then Keynsham on the counter-attack from that resulting set piece managed to wrap things up with Matt Brown scoring their second. So yeah, Keynsham taking the 2-0 win, and obviously at the time leapfrogging Cheddar back on into top spot.
We will be hearing Shaun Potter's thoughts on that game later in the podcast, but for now we turn our attention to the fixtures on the Saturday of the 6th of April, and we kick off in Bridport, where the visitors were odd down, and the 114 who watched this game enjoyed a 7-goal thriller, Tom.
Yeah, a mid-table clash, and Bridport eventually prevailing 4-3 to actually leapfrog odd down in the table. So there's positions up for grabs in the league table. And yeah, as I say, Bridport eventually running out 4-3 winners. Went ahead pretty early on, 2 early goals from Ed Butcher and Mark Salter before Adnan Hiroli managed to half the deficit from the spot, all inside 16 minutes. So a frantic start to the game. And then just as it felt it settled down, George Lloyd managed to slot home an equaliser for the visitors to put it to 2-2 just before the half, as I say. So that was how they went into the half-time period. But it was Bridport who came out stronger in the second half, just they had the first, really. Luke King putting them back ahead before Butcher scored his second of the afternoon to restore the 2-goal lead. Darius Davey then got one back for odd down 20 minutes from time, but they were unable to claim the equaliser, and it was, Bridport 4-3 victors.
Well, our next featured game in the Premier Division has seismic impact on the title race in the Premier Division. Last week's podcast guest, Tony Beecham, of course, the manager of Cribs, he did talk about this game against Willand, and we talked about its importance. But I wonder how many of our listeners realise just how important that game would prove to be. Cribs at home to Willand Rovers.
Yeah, absolutely. This could have huge ramifications, as you mentioned. I think it was one of the games one of us picked out last week, and obviously noted that Cribs were very capable of giving Willand a tough game, and they did more than that. They beat them 2-0. Shutting down Willand has been a pretty tough gig this season. So to keep them goalless was probably just as impressive as the 2-0 victory, really. But it was goals in either half for Cribs to give them the 3 points. Akibodin Akiwumi giving them the lead before the break, and then George Kello with a second half penalty wrapping up the victory for Cribs.
Now, moving on to the other powerhouse in the title race, Plymouth Parkway. They were at home to Bridgewater Town. The largest attendance in the Premier Division on Saturday, 194 saw this one. Could Plymouth Parkway capitalise on that rare slip-up from Willand Rovers, Tom?
Ooh, not fully. Taking a point in this one. It was a 1-1 draw at home to Bridgewater. They did move top following this result. So obviously, the point was crucial in the end. But obviously, they would have wanted the 3. But playing a tough Bridgewater side, it was never going to be easy, and they did have to come from behind. Jake Brown putting the visitors ahead, but Plymouth Parkway managing to get back on level terms with Adam Carter looping a header into the net just before half time in first half stoppage time, in fact, and then second half there was nothing to speak of goal wise, so that was how it stayed. Plymouth Parkway drawing 1-1 with Bridgewater, but as I say, they do move top of the table.
Well, we can't talk about the top 2 without talking about the team that's making this a 3-horse race. And whilst the others stumbled at one of the last fences in this epic race, Bitten was certainly in no mood for slipping up.
No, absolutely not. They're surging towards the end of the season. They are, firing on all cylinders at the moment. A 7-0 win away at Roman Glass St George. Never really in doubt, this one. And it was Ben Bammont. Yeah, he was very much the star of the show. Scoring 4 goals, so obviously taking his tally, I think, to 36 now in all competitions this season. He's having a fantastic season, and I know he's missed a couple of games recently with injury, so not too bad from him. Also goals from Billy Fletcher, Joe McLennan, who seems to be firing at the right time for Bitten, and then Alex Grimshaw joining him on the score sheet late on. So a huge 7-0 win for Bitten, and as you say, very much joining the title race, which we will look in depth at later in the league tables, I'm sure.
And finally, in the Premier Division, the last game we're going to have a look at is Wellington against Hengrove Athletic, and a comprehensive win for the home side. Yeah,
Wellington, 5-0 victors. Hadn't been doing too well recently, so it's a good afternoon for them to end that poor spell of form. Going ahead really early on, 5 minutes in, a penalty from Josh Wadham, and then completing a pretty comprehensive first half. Connor Bryant scoring twice before the break to put them 3 goals up at the break. And then Sam Jones, and it was youngster Lewis Pocock completing the scoring in the closing stages. As I say, 5-0 win for Wellington.
I don't need an excuse to talk to Clive Jones. He's one of my favourite managers to interview since I've been doing the podcast. But of course, as Tom's just said, Wellington haven't been in great form, and we haven't heard from Clive for quite some time, meaning that 2019 hasn't been the happiest of New Years for the Somerset side. But a 5-0 win wasn't a bad way to get things going before the end of the season. And I started my interview with Clive by asking him whether he felt that scoreline did his side justice on Saturday.
To be honest with you, I felt a bit for Hengrove. They're a smashing club, very similar to ourselves. Now they run themselves. We've had a hard month. They've had a hard month. So I think we caught them on a day where they were vulnerable. But you've still got to take your chances and win the game, which is what we did.
You've just mentioned there that you'd had a difficult March, 3 consecutive defeats. So did that make that win, regardless of the scoreline, even more important for you?
Well, it wasn't just the Saturday game. When you look at our last 4 games against 2 teams trying to win the league, I just said that we had to stop the rot, because our last 4 games we might lose another 4. We play at home and then we play away for the last 3. So it was just massive for our own confidence. We had a lot of players missing. It's not an excuse, it's the truth. So I've looked at some young boys and they've did well for me Saturday.
I mean, you've always talked to me in our interviews before about how competitive the Premier League is. It's a league of the haves and the have-nots. I know earlier when we spoke in the season, you'd started, very well. You find yourself in 15th place at the moment. Do you think that that's a fair reflection of your season?
Yes, no complaints whatsoever. I say this to lots of people. Good teams win cups, the best teams win leagues. And if you're 15th in the league, that's where you deserve to be. Since Christmas, we have been poor. The poorest I've known, maybe in the 2 or 3, well, especially in the 2 years in the Premier League. You can look at excuses, you can say so-and-so's missing, but that's rubbish. We have been poor, and we haven't got very many points since Christmas.
But there is quite a race in the Premier League to get into the top half. And actually, in fairness, you're only 5 points away from Bridport, who are currently in 11th. So, I mean, with these remaining games of the season, are you looking up the table or down?
Oh, I never look down. Never look down. I've got enough worries like looking down at a football table. I look at something like Bridport, and that's where I'd like Wellington to end up being when I finish. An established Premier League side that have good cup runs, never in any danger, and that's what I'd like Wellington to achieve before I finally do retire. So we'll look up. We've got to play Willen, we've got to play Bridgewater, and then we finish at Clevedon. So it's going to be hard to get some points out of those games.
Well, next up is that Bridport game, and that's your last home game of the season, isn't it? So I'm sure you're hoping that the fans come along and have a good sort of finale to this campaign.
But to be fair, we've played a lot of our games away, same as everybody else, and we take a few with us. And I've been pleased all season with our home fans. It's been better than last year. I don't know the exact stats, but I think our home support has been good all year. So I'm hoping they'll come one more time. They can vote through their player of the year is for the supporters. So I'm hoping it'll be a good game, but it'll be a tough game against Bridport.
Well, you've got to give them something to cheer about, haven't you?
We can only but try. It might not be football, but I'll give them something to cheer about.
Now, you've mentioned those big games coming up after that, and Bridgewater's on the horizon, and I know from my conversations with the Bridgewater management team that your games with them are always there's a bit of an edge, isn't there? There's a derby, there's bragging rights at stake.
Well, it's not just that. Everyone points to quite a few players that played for both teams before and after I took over Wellington. So you find players playing against their mates. Bridgewater, to me, have had a fantastic season. I like their manager. They've got some good players. Obviously, I know some of their players very well. Seen 5 of them played for me at different times. But no, they're a good club. They've had a brilliant season.
Well, after that, of course, you've got Willand at Silver Street.
I know a bit about them.
You do, don't you? And, I mean, the fact of the matter is that regardless of what else is going on this season, your match with them could actually have a big impact on the title race.
Yeah, I don't want that put on me, Matt. I live in Willen. I don't particularly want people saying that. Them again, I just spoke highly of Bridgewater. How can you not speak highly of Willen? Superb in the FA Vars. I want to watch them in one of the rounds. They've beaten us twice already, both times 2-0, but comfortable 2-0s. So it's on my doorstep on, Easter Monday. If they win the league, fair play them, they deserve it.
I mean, it is a fascinating title race, isn't it? At the top of the top of the Premier.
That's 3 very good sides who play totally different ways. It's more than one way to win a football match, and you look at those 3 teams; they play totally different from one another.
Going back to my comments earlier in this interview, we talked before about sort of leagues within leagues, and I know that some of the clubs, like your own, relatively speaking, to some of the sides towards the top of the table, the resources that you have at your disposal, aren't the greatest. But I mean, in terms of what we see on a Saturday afternoon in the Western League, I mean, is there much of a gap, do you think, between the top sides in the Premier Division and the rest of the sides?
Yeah, there's nobody can deny that, and we all know the reason. It's all down to finances, but that doesn't bother me. Before a season starts who's got what, and then when a club has a good run, they seem to add a little bit more and they pick up a bit more quality. That's sport. I never complain if a club's got £1,000 or £5. That is what sport is. You try to get to a level, you sustain it, and you push on again. There's some big gaps between some of the teams in the top 5 and the teams in the bottom 5. There's no denying that.
With that in mind, then, pound for pound, when you think of the sides that you've come up against this season, who do you think is punching above their weight?
Westbury by a country mile. They've had a great season. I know they're going to end up coming 5th. Or maybe 6th, I'm not exactly sure, I haven't got a table in front of me. But I think Westbury have been the team of the year for me. Nobody thought about them. They've come up from the first division. They went a long time without losing. So they've got to be really pleased with their season.
Well, one final question for you, Clive. It's been a theme on recent podcasts that we've talked about the fact that we're going to have sin bins around next season. Now, I did see on social media, of course, that you're going to be around next season as well. So, have you given that any thought?
With the league our reserves play in, the Extra District, have already got it. and I've watched it a couple of times, and it does affect players. Whether it'll work in the Western League with having official linesmen bring on more pressure, it might quieten down some poor managers, Mike. So I'm not against it, but I've never, I've seen it, but I've not been involved in it. But I think some people got to look at themselves. It's non-stop shouting gets on my nerves after a while.
Well, Clive, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to the podcast again, and I'm very pleased to see that we'll have the pleasure of your company on next season's podcast as well.
If you're thinking, Toolstation, I know they'll save me money, but do they have all the top brands? You know, DeWalt, Makita, Einhell, Stanley, Myra, Kudox, Nest and Santex. Yeah, they do. Over 15,000 trade quality products in the range from the leading brands with prices that are hard to beat. If you want a helping hand to save on your next job, try Toolstation. With over 300 branches, there's always a Toolstation near you.
Now, moving into the First Division, and we kick off with relegation-threatened Radstock Town. They were on the road to near rivals Bishop Sutton, and a comprehensive win for the Miners. Yeah,
two teams sitting in the bottom six. So it was very much a big game towards the bottom, and it was Radstock, as you say, running out pretty easy. 3-0 victors. A 10th minute goal from Morgan Skip put them ahead, and then it was James Rustle. He's having another pretty good season in front of goal. And then second half substitute Jack Biddiscombe completing the scoring. A 3-0 win for Radstock. So that's back-to-back wins for them just at the right time.
Could Cheddar bounce back from that disappointing home defeat to Keynsham on Tuesday? They had to go to Calne Town, and that's not been an easy place to go for anybody in the Western League this season. Did they manage it, Tom?
They did. A 3-1 win for Cheddar, so bouncing back pretty well. And obviously capitalising on Keynsham's match being postponed, as we mentioned. So they do go back top of the table. Chris Coombs put them ahead. But then it was Adam Jones who scored twice in the second half to complete the victory at Bremhill View. And Jones moving ahead of teammate Adam Wright in the top goal scoring charts this season by a goal. They seem to be changing positions most weeks. So those two doing well. But the most important thing, Cheddar running out 3-1 winners.
Well, I'm delighted to welcome back to the Toolstation Western League podcast Shaun Potter, the manager of Cheddar. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us, Shaun. Cheddar sitting on top of the table, but Keynsham can go top if they win that game in hand. Who do you feel has the advantage at the moment?
Well, you'd have to say it's in Keynsham's hands. It's been in our hands for quite a while. It's not. To be fair, it's not an easy place to be, sat at the top and having someone chasing your tail. So we know what sort of position they're in at the minute, and the pressure's on both of us, to be honest. I think we've sort of both guaranteed the top two positions now. We've sort of thrown it away a little bit in the last few weeks, but like I say, it looks like there's only sort of 4 or 5 games to go, but in reality, that's still a long way to go. A lot of things can happen in those 4 or 5 games. So, we just got to make sure we do our side, we do our job, and win our remaining games, and then see where we end up.
I mean, obviously it was a good win at the weekend, and we will talk about that. But of course, it was only a week or so ago that you did lose out at home to Keynsham. I mean, that must have been very disappointing for you.
Yeah, do you know what? It was a really, really strange feeling after the game. Usually after a loss, I'm going in, since the Wells game just before, going in really, really disappointed and thinking sort of the lads could have done a little bit more, maybe I could have done a little bit more. And I'm very critical of myself and the lads. But after Tuesday, it was such a strange feeling, and I thought we were brilliant. We went down to 10 men after sort of 15, 20 minutes, as you'll probably know. Which killed us a little bit, but before that, I think we were probably on top, and I was feeling confident. We were executing the game plan really well, dealing with anything they had to throw at us, and it was turning into sort of a good game. And then obviously with going down to 10 men so early, it completely changes the game, and we just sort of had to dig in. And even with 10 men, I couldn't have asked any more from the lads. I thought we were brilliant. They scored on probably 60 minutes, and then again with 10 men, we threw the kitchen sink at them. We hit the bar in injury time to sort of trying to grab a draw, and then they've gone up the other end and scored on the break because they'd outnumbered us on the break, and then killed the game off. So the margins were really, really small. Down one end, we're sort of inches away from scoring to get that equaliser, and then they go down the other end and score. So, you know, I couldn't have asked any more of the lads. They really, really did work hard, and they played very well. They dealt with pretty much most of what Keynsham had to throw at us. And they're a great side, don't get me wrong, really, really good side. So I couldn't really do much other than give a lot of credit to the lads. But obviously then it's also really, really disappointed to come away having lost a game of that magnitude, you know.
Well, the disappointment is difficult to bear, but of course the fact of the matter is that you did manage to win again at the weekend, so you've kept this title race live. I mean, how important was it for you to get that result on Saturday?
Oh, it was huge. It was huge. We'd obviously seen in the morning that Keynsham had been called off, so for us, it's probably the reward's a little bit greater because you go top of the league and it puts a little bit more pressure on them. But then, like you say, the pressure becomes a lot greater because you know that you need to be winning those games. And to be fair, the lads they went out and done really, really well. It was quite comfortable in the end. It probably could have been a few more. But Khan had a little go in the second half. They're a good side. I think you don't really play any bad sides in this league. So yeah, to go there and come away 3-1 and get that job done was particularly pleasing.
Now, I mean, it would be fair to say that March wasn't a great month for you, form-wise. You had defeats to Wells, which you've alluded to, and of course Warminster as well. What do you put that down to?
It's difficult to put my finger on. I think what I try and look at it over a season, and I look at us losing maybe 4 or 5 games, maybe I don't know what it is, but maybe 5 games. And I think we would have taken that. We would have taken being on 79 points with 4 games to go. If someone had asked me that in pre-season, I'd have bit their hand off at that. So when you look at it I look at it on a whole and sort of spread it out. There's not really much you can put it down to. The Wells game is a derby. They beat us twice this season. It's they're a bit of a bogey team for us. We can't really ever seem to raise our game against them. And Warminster, I think we probably underestimated them a little bit. Not me personally, but I think the lads, I think subconsciously you sometimes rely on your ability to get you through the games, and it doesn't happen in this league. You need to be on it every single week. And Warminster are a very, very good side. I think they're probably one of the better sides we've played this season. I think if they'd have had that form from the beginning of the season, then they probably would have been right up there. So yeah, it was just, we had a red card in that game. We had a red card in the first game against Wells that we lost, so I'm not putting it all down to red cards because we've probably got ourselves to blame for most of them. But yeah, I just think they've all sort of come at the same time, and it looks like we've hit a bit of a dip in form. But when you look at the season as a whole, I think losing just a handful of games for a club like ours, competing with some of the clubs with the bigger budgets and the bigger squads and teams that have been in this league for a lot longer than us, teams that have been up in the Prem and come back down. So I think for a little club like ours to be where we are, looking at the season as a whole, is still a massive, massive achievement for us.
Well, mathematically, Keynsham and yourselves can't be caught now. You've sewn up the top 2 spots, which of course under normal circumstances would be good enough to get you promoted to the Premier Division. But this season it's not quite as simple as that, is it, Shaun?
No, to be honest, we still haven't really had confirmation from the league how it's going to work. I think the constitution of the league says 2 up, 2 down, which we obviously assume that was the case, and that's what we've aimed for all season, as most clubs would have. But yeah, then this points per game system's come into it, and it's crazy really when you look at some of the things that could happen with the points per game system. It's madness. I think I look at it as though you could get a team from sort of the Norwich area, like hours and hours away from here, that could have a better points per game in their league than us, and it'd stop us from going up, and it'd also stop a team coming down from the Prem. So it's just it's a little bit of a strange one. I think you work hard all season to sort of get where you are, and then you could be denied it from like things like this. And also leagues like you've got the Hellenic League that I think they've got about 13 teams in the league. So their second place side is also compared to our second place side, and their points per game is probably a little bit easier to achieve when we're playing 38 games and they're playing sort of the low 20s. So it is all a little bit, it's a little bit strange. I don't really know the reasoning behind it, but it is what it is, and we've just, like I say, we've got to go out and do our job the last 4 games and do everything we can if we do end up finishing second to have the best points per game possible, and hope that we go up.
I mean, these matters. We discussed it on last week's podcast, and it is always a shame, particularly for yourself and the players, but equally for the fans as well. When matters of football aren't settled, promotion and relegation, these matters aren't settled on the pitch, which is what we all pay our money for. But, I mean, this is a matter of football in politics, and as I think you've very eloquently described, it affects the entire country. It's not just isolated to the Western League. Interesting to note that one of the other teams in the shake-up on the points per game ratio that will be competing against you is, of course, Malmesbury Victoria, and we all remember them from last season, don't we? And I wasn't entirely sure, and I think many people who watch Western League football weren't, about why they were extracted from the Western League and plopped into the Hellenic League this season. But I mean, if there is good news for you, Shaun, it's that that Cheddar, by my understanding, at the current rate you're going with, the current points per game ratio that you have, I mean, you are occupying one of the spaces that would secure you promotion. So I suppose the message there really is you've just got to keep on winning until the end of the season.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The frustrating thing for us, I think, before this came around was knowing that we'd secured it. I think it was when we lost to Wales, actually. Ashton Blackwell drew, and we'd secured a top 2 place, but we can't celebrate it. You know, like we've worked hard all season, and like you say, we got fans that have been coming for 50 years that have never seen the club anywhere near where we are now. And I think the most frustrating thing is we've made it mathematically definite, and we can't go out and celebrate, you know, until we know what's going on. And yeah, I think that's the most frustrating thing. But like you say, yeah, we are in there at the moment, but we were, I think, before the Wales game, I think it's just showed us losing to Wales and Keynsham, those 2 games, our points per game's like dramatically dropped. I think we would have been probably in the top sort of 5 of those runners up, or top 3 even before those games. But losing 2 games puts us right near sort of the bottom end of it. So I've explained this to the lads, that it's not, we're in there at the moment, but a little dip, and sort of 2 games out of the last 4 we could be again right down there. So it does swing around a little bit, so I'm not going to get sort of complacent and be happy with where we are. We've still got a big 4 games to go, and I know it's a bit of a cliche, but they are 4 cup finals for us, and we do need to win them to put pressure on Keynsham, and if they do slip up, then obviously that will be great for us and we'll be champions. But secondly, we don't want to go through this season and do what we've done and then end up not going up because of a points per game. So again, we just need to win our 4 games and see where that takes us.
Well, 3 of those 4 games are at home, and as you've described, those matches are all cup finals. You win them all, and I think you've got a pretty good chance, if not pretty much nailed on, of getting one of those points per game promotions. But more importantly, as you said, Keynsham could slip up. So in trying to seek promotion, you could inadvertently win the title. So there's everything to play for going into this, and I'm sure that you'll want all of the fans to continue to come and support you for the rest of this season, because with 3 of those games at home, they could make a huge difference, couldn't they?
Yeah, that's right. I think the fans that we don't really, we have the same sort of fans that come every week. They're pretty dedicated, and I don't think it will sort of go up and down depending on whether we're still in the promotion hunt or not. I think these guys are sort of, they've been dedicated all season, so I don't think that will change. And you know, at home, we like I say, we're good at home, and we've got three of the last 4 at home, so we're really up for it. The lads know the scenario, they know the situation, they know what we've got to do. So yeah, again for us, it's going out and getting those wins. It's not just for the play. It's not just for the players and the management, and it's for the people around the club that work hard and they're doing it for free, and the fans that come away every week, and they've really sort of bought into it. And I could say there's fans that have been coming for like 40, 50 years that have never seen the club do this well. We've never been in sort of step 5 where we're looking to go. So yeah, there's a lot of excitement, and yeah, we just need to keep it going and give them something to celebrate come last game of the season, home to Port Z. So I don't think we'll be celebrating any time before that. Like you say, there's still a lot to go on. There's a lot of things that can happen. So I think we'll just get through to the Port Z game and just see where we are after that.
Well, the First Division title race has all the hallmarks of another title race that I'm sure many football fans will be glued to until probably the last day of the professional season. And sadly for you and your players and your fans, the rewards aren't quite as illustrious as in other leagues. But the entertainment that you're providing for those of us who follow Western League football is outstanding. And I sincerely hope that you and Keynsham carry on this incredible form, this incredible battle between the two of you until the end of the season. Shaun, it's been incredibly entertaining, and speaking on behalf of all the fans in the Western League, we watch it with bated breath.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. The lads do work really hard, and they've all got other jobs. They don't get financially rewarded, or so it's a good thing to see. It's good to see the lads that have put so much effort in and dedicated so much time and sacrificed time with their wives and families at weekends. And so yeah, it's good to see us up there, and it's good to see us doing well. I just hope that we can get our rewards at the end of the season for everybody involved.
Now, if you were one of the 62 that saw this, you certainly had your money's worth, because there were 6 goals between Chard Town and Chippenham Park.
Yeah, Chippenham Park desperate for points in their battle against relegation, and they did go ahead in this one. Dan Ware putting them in the lead after 25 minutes, but then Chard managed to hit back. Andy Holmes scoring from the edge of the area to make it 1-1 at the break. Coming out of the break, Chippenham Park very much pushed on. Lewis Ellington and then Joel Smedley putting them 3-1 up. Pretty quick fire goals from those two, I think, in the first 7 minutes of the second half, in fact. So a 3-1 lead for them. But Chard managed to grab a point. Marky Jones, 16-year-old, pulling them back within a goal. And then it was Kieran Bailey who scored 20 minutes from time to level it. And finished Chard 3, Chippenham Park 3.
And our final game to review in the First Division was at Wells. The visitors were Corsham, and 5 goals between these two sides.
Yeah, and 3 of them belonging to one man, Jamal Chevallot. He's in fantastic form to end the season for Corsham, and very much one of the reasons they are up in third as things sit at the moment. Connor Linham had put Wells ahead following a goalless opening half, so it was all after the break, all these goals coming. But Corsham then managed to hit back. Chevallot obviously drawing the visitors level from the spot, and then scoring again 10 minutes later to put them 2-1 up. Wells managed to respond, scoring an equaliser 10 minutes from time from Dale Hunt. But then it was Chevallot having the last word. A pretty well taken volley. I think there's footage on social media, so if you want to check the winning goal out, there is capability to do that. And it was Corsham, a 3-2 win away at Wells, who obviously had beaten Cheddar recently. So fantastic result for Corsham.
Excellent. Well, that concludes our roundup of the fixtures from last weekend. So we turn our attention to the football that's coming up this week. Now, we don't normally dwell too much on midweek football, of course, because for most of the listeners, it will have happened by the time that they listen to the podcast. But there are 2 fixtures on Wednesday, the 10th of April, that we should talk about. They are our Les Phillips Cup semi-finals, Tom. Yeah,
absolutely. Wednesday night, both 7:30 kickoffs. We got Cadbury Heath, obviously knocked out Buckland in the last round. Slightly surprising result, I think we could say. They host Plymouth Parkway. And then we got Willand against Bridgewater. So 4 Premier Division sides going at it. Looks like 2 absolutely fantastic games on paper.
Yeah, and I think we can safely say that whichever of those 4 sides gets through to the final, it's going to be an absolute cracking final. Great to see teams in there that are real cup specialists. Of course, we know all about Willand Rovers, don't we? Because of their Vars heroics. But Cadbury Heath as well did well in that competition, and we know how good Plymouth Parkway are, and Bridgewater Town. Frankly, their support alone always puts them in contention in any one-off game, I think. So as it has done in the league. So I mean, that really is an absolute cracking lineup. Anyway, we move on to Saturday, the 13th of April. And what is your pick of the Premier Division games, Tom?
So I've gone for odd down versus Plymouth Parkway. So obviously Parkway very much in the race for top spot. But yeah, Willand playing Shortwood and bitten away at Hengrove. So obviously the other two challengers for the title playing against the bottom two. So you'd expect them to pick up their 3 points. So Parkway probably got the most difficult task this weekend away at odd down, who have started to score a fair few goals. Not winning every week, obviously they suffered defeat on the weekend. But yeah, a tough trip for Parkway. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on.
Well, we all know which teams have got everything to play for this season, but often that leads quite a lot of sides to play out the rest of the games. And I often wonder sort of what motivation managers can bring to bear to keep players and indeed supporters interested in the sort of the tail end of the season. But two sides that will definitely be wanting to build upon what have been contrasting seasons in some respects, I suppose. Buckland Athletic and Clevedon Town. Clevedon, I think, have done exceptionally well and clearly look like a very, very formidable Western League side. And Buckland are a team, of course, with high ambitions. And I think that probably building a little momentum into the final month of the season is going to be equally important for both, not necessarily for this season's campaign, but perhaps building something for next season. So that will be my pick of the fixtures in the Prem. Buckland at home to Clevedon Town. And what catches your eye in the First Division, Tom?
I've plumped for Corsham against Chippenham Park. Chippenham Park obviously ensconced in a relegation battle, currently down in 18th, level on points with a couple of sides down there. And playing away at Corsham, obviously banging form. Got a striker who seems to be scoring for fun at the moment, and they're looking for third spot, probably to finish third spot. They've got a good 5-point buffer at the moment. And obviously, we know the top two are probably they are out of reach, aren't they, going for the title? But a third place finish for Corsham would be a fantastic return. So obviously, two teams desperate for points.
Well, I'm hoping to take in Devizes Town at home to Portishead Town on Saturday, but I'm not going to be so bold as to make that my game to watch of the weekend in the First Division. I'm going to go for Longwell Green against Cairn Town. Longwell Green really did impress me in the first half at Devizes a couple of weeks ago. They did look like a very good form. They looked like a very good team, and of course we know that they have been in reasonable form of late. And Cairn Town as well, another very good side. And I think that there'll be two teams looking to take maximum points from that fixture. Will make it a very good, entertaining game if you are looking for a match to watch in the First Division. Now we have alluded to it a couple of times until now. But we're now going to have a look at the league tables. I think last week we had a look at the goal scorers. We like to alternate these things, but we're going to have a look at the league tables. So, Tom, do you want to talk us through what's going on in the Premier Division?
Absolutely. As we mentioned, 3-horse race now for the title. Very wide open. Only a couple of games left for each. So we've got Plymouth Parkway currently sitting top. 34 games played. They're on 83 points. So they've got 4 games remaining. We've got Willand then in second. They've got a game in hand. They've played 33. They're on 82, so a point back from Plymouth. And then we've also got Bitton on 82 as well, level with Willand, but they have played a game more. Willand currently with the better goal difference of the 3 sides at the moment. If it does come down to that, very much looks like it could. So Willand have 5 games remaining. The other 2 have 4. We've then got Bridgewater in 4th on 71 points, and Westbury in 5th on 70 points. So those 2 battling for 4th, but they've both had absolutely fantastic seasons. Towards the bottom, or down at the bottom, we've got Shortwood. Played 34, they got 9 points. Obviously, tough season for them, but battling hard. Obviously, I think, picked up a fair few of those points in recent times, so they've got 4 more games remaining. We've then got Hengrove in 19th. They've played 34, they've got 18 points. And then we've got a couple of sides on 28 points. A couple of points now needed from them to assure themselves of safety, and that's Roman Glass St George and Brislington. So as I say, they're both on 28 points, 10 points clear of Hengrove.
And this weekend's rounds of fixtures could really prove conclusive in that relegation bottom 2 race, because Shortwood on 9 points, even if they won all their remaining games, could only get 21, which would only take them above Hengrove. It wouldn't put them near enough to Roman Glass St George. Hengrove on 18, the maximum they can get is 30 points. So if Hengrove don't win, and Roman Glass avoid defeat, then really that puts Hengrove in a position where they can't move into 18th. So that's the situation at the foot of the Premier Division. Now we move on to one of the most mathematically exciting equations in non-league football. It is the promotion race at the top of the First Division. Tom, can you shed some light on this?
Try my best. So we have Cheddar back in top spot, 34 games played, so they've got 4 left. They're on 79 points. We then got Keynsham, obviously that game in hand, which takes place on Tuesday evening. They've played 33, they're on 78, so obviously a win for them away at Wincanton, which won't be easy. Wincanton are certainly capable of putting up a good fight. So yeah, Keynsham on 78, a point further back with obviously that game in hand this evening. And obviously, top spot assured of promotion. And second place, be up for mathematical stuff going on towards the end of the season, but still 4 games left, so we'll worry about that a bit later, I think. In third, we've got Corsham, played 34, they've got 63 points, and they're 5 clear of Longwell Green, so they're looking good for a third place finish. Ashton and Backwell also 5 points back. Those 3 teams have all played 34. And then we've got Warminster up in 6th. Fantastic effort from them, and Chard also on 56 points, just like Warminster in 7th. So that's how it's looking at the top. At the bottom, we've got Bristol Telephones. They've played 33. They're on 24 points. They've got 5 games left, so they're going to have to win a couple of those to get any safety this season. We've got Oldland. They're in 19th. They've played 34. They're on 30 points, which is the same as Chippenham Park. So those two very much scrapping it out. We've got Radstock. Obviously, we mentioned 2 wins on the bounce, so they've moved up to 17th. They're on 33 points, and then we've got a couple of teams on 34 who are very much not out of it. We've got Portishead and Bishop Sutton, and all those teams have played 34 matches. Bishop Sutton, Portishead, Radstock, Chippenham Park and Oldland, with Bristol Telephones a game in hand, but they're a bit further back. So those are the 6 teams that look to be fighting for safety over the last couple of weeks of the season. It's going to be a fascinating battle.
It certainly is. When we spoke to Joe Sharples last week, of course, the manager of Chippenham Park, he said he was targeting 40 points. He felt that 40 points would be the watermark for this season. And when you look at, everybody under 14th that puts them all in the equation. I think Lydiard are probably safe. I'd expect them to pick up the points that they need from their last 4 games. But it just goes to show how tight it is down at the bottom there. And actually, if you look at the sort of how the maths play out, if Telephones do win all of their remaining 5 fixtures, that would put them on 39 points. So at the moment they look like they're cut adrift at the bottom of the First Division, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not out of it. And actually, Oldland, Chippenham, Radstock, Portishead and Bishop Sutton, frankly, I imagine none of those managers are sleeping particularly well at the moment, because that really is very tight. Now we did talk about it on last week's podcast, I think, didn't we? We talked about this whole points per game situation that's dominating the promotion issue in the First Division. And of course, I spoke at length with Shaun Potter, the Cheddar manager, about it as well. But I mean, at the moment, what we're looking at is, so at the moment, Cheddar, who've played 34 games, they've got 79 points. They could get a maximum of 91 points. Keynsham, who've played 33, they could get a maximum of 93 points. At the moment, both sides are accumulating 2.3 points per game. It's 2.32 if you're a Cheddar fan, and 2.36 if you are a Keynsham fan. So Keynsham sitting in second at the moment, of course, with that game in hand, are handily placed with their points per game ratio. Now, if on social media, of course, many of our listeners I know are active on social media, and there is I've been recommended by a couple of our managers to follow a chap called Peter Miller. Peter Miller 36 is his Twitter handle, and he has produced an incredibly impressive spreadsheet which identifies all sorts of weird and wonderful permutations across the board for for what that sort of means collectively across the steps. But it does look like both Cheddar and Keynsham, if you take a look at that spreadsheet, are handily placed. Now the problem with these things, of course, is they're only as reliable as the people who fill them in. Fixtures are taking place all over the country all of the time. Of course, we know Keynsham are playing tonight, so all of these dynamics are constantly changing. But I think the bottom line is that if Cheddar and Keynsham can carry on picking up points, and so certainly by winning all of their games, which I know is a lot easier said than done, till the end of the season, it does put both of them in a very strong position to be promoted. And of course, the winner of the First Division is promoted by right. So that is the prize. And what's exciting for all of us who are watching this race is that, of course, in attempting to get that Willy Wonka's golden ticket, we will probably see some incredibly good football and some very exciting results right up until the end of the season. So that's one of the great advertisements, not only for Western League football, but also, of course, for our marvellous First Division, which I do watch more than my fair share of, probably. Anyway, Tom, thank you very much for your time today. We have, of course, been reviewing your outstanding bulletin, and where can the listeners find that?
So yeah, that is on the Toolstation Western League website. It's on the homepage, downloadable as a PDF, and then also you can click on the tab along the top. It takes you to the most recent bulletin, and that's usually available Sunday lunchtime after the fixture taking place the day before. Excellent stuff. And have you penned your column for the non-league paper? Absolutely, yeah. Step 5 and 6 section that can be found. Rounding up the Premier Division matches from the weekend. Wonderful stuff, Tom. Thank you very much for your time. Pleasure. And I look forward to catching up with you on next week's Toolstation Western League podcast.